Welcome to Mastery Fractional CFO's Punchy podcast, short, impactful podcasts where I speak with business leaders from all walks of life about their business. Today I've got with me Colin McIntosh. Colin is an entrepreneur with a variety of different business interests. Colin, tell us about who you are and what you do. Tell us about your business.
Well, I have one big business interest, and that's my main company, Sheets and Giggles, that I spend most of my waking hours on. And I've been running that for about 7 or 8 years. If no one's heard of Sheets and Giggles, spoiler alert, we sell bed sheets. It's the easiest elevator pitch in the world. And we do sustainable bedding made mostly out of eucalyptus trees. It's called lyocell, and we do lyocell sheets, pillows, mattresses, and so everything's plant-based for the most part. Our comforters are sustainable duvet covers, so we really try to have an eco-friendly bent. We have hundreds of thousands of customers. We've been on Good Morning America. We've been on The View. Have a really well-known established brand in the sustainable bedding space. And I'm just really grateful for the opportunity that I've, been afforded in life to chase something like this. And then you're alluding to the fact that I have unmedicated ADHD, so I have a lot of passion projects. One of them in particular has taken on a bit of a life of its own that I love, and it is a resume builder and cover letter generator, AI interview practice. It's a whole suite of tools for job seekers. I used to be a recruiter for Fortune 100 companies. I've hired a lot of people in my life. I know all about resumes and best practices. And there's so much bad advice out there. And I've become very famous online for my resume advice. My resume template's been downloaded about 5 million times.
Wow.
And I've helped many, many people over the world apply for jobs and get jobs. And that is at sheetsresume.com. I am the Sheets guy. For better and for worse, I could be worse than my pillow guy, right? I'm the Sheets guy. So everything I do, my podcast is called Sheet Talk. So yeah, sheetsresume.com is my favorite side project.
So Colin, it's interesting because I love speaking with business people. I want to know, how did you get into this? Whether it be the sheets themselves or the resume builder. Tell me your story. Where did it start, and how did you get into business in the first place?
Well, it's all kind of tangled together. So I graduated from Emory University in 2012. I went to the business school there. I studied economics and finance and business law, and then I ended up getting a job at a place called Bridgewater Associates in Connecticut, if you're familiar with it, world's largest hedge fund, Ray Dalio's fund. And I got fired in like 5 months. And that kicked off a tremendous amount of discovery early in my career about what I actually cared about, what I actually wanted to do, how I wanted to help people. And the short version of the story is I became a recruiter at the company that hired me at Bridgewater, which was ironic because I ended up recruiting for them and for other banks and hedge funds. Some of my clients were startups as a recruiter, and I loved my startup clients so much. I was obsessed with the idea of like building your own thing and how awesome it was that they were working on these big problems. And I ended up hiring myself at one of my clients into a biz dev role. That's how good I was at recruiting. I hired myself. Best exit ever from a company. And everybody got paid. And so I ended up flying out to Seattle, lived there for a couple of years. Then my friend called me in 2015, said, hey, we got into Techstars with her company. I had been part of the founding team there. I'd written the business plan. So I dropped everything, drove 20 hours down to Boulder, did Techstars 2015. 2.5 years later, we all got laid off at 1 p.m. on a Monday, as happens with startups. And I incorporated Sheets and Giggles 3 weeks later because I wanted to do my own company. I had consumer brand experience, and I thought that now is the right time. So that was 2017. We did our crowdfunding campaign in 2018. We raised $300,000 in crowdfunding, and then shipped my first box 6 months later. And 2 years after that, we had our first $1 million sales month in November 2020. So it was pretty meteoric rise.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories, but you're right. That one's meteoric, relatively speaking. I'm curious. I mean, you said you're strong in business development. I'm curious. Business development's it's a big thing. So there's a lot going on in business development. But tell me what your specific strengths are. What do you think is different about you that's helped you get this kind of success or that kind of early going success?
That's an interesting question. I'm probably not the right person to ask that because I have imposter syndrome and I compare myself to others a lot, and I don't really feel like there's anything overly special about me. But if I take a step back and I think about it, I would say that first off, I don't sleep very much. I have herniated C. I actually am often awake. I can't sleep, which is ironic, right? And so I tend to work like I have this huge burst of creative energy at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and it goes till usually 3 or 4 in the morning. And I just like, there's no Slack notifications, there's no email notifications. So I get my best work done probably in the evening, late at night, whether in my home or at a bar or something like that. And I just get a huge amount done. And that's probably when like I'm doing my most creative work, my most strategic work. And so I think that that's probably something different about me that a lot of, I don't really do the 9 to 5. I wake up when I wake up. I go about my day. I start work maybe 10, 11 a.m. And then, I hang out with my wife. I have dinner. I have to work out, and then I get back to work. And so I don't know how many hours in a day I work, but that's something that like energy and neuroticism, I think, goes a long way. And I would say like from a strategic standpoint, if I'm being tactical about it, I have a really big obsession with customer experience. I get really bent out of shape when I use companies' products, and the companies clearly don't give a damn about their users. Oftentimes, bigger companies that don't have to worry about their user experience because they have some type of monopoly in the space, and I cannot stand it. So, like, every single thing is super well thought out, from the packaging to the user experience on the website. Even our resume builder is a great example of this. You know how there's this annoying thing where if you go on a website and it says, type in your URL, and you type in, sheetsgiggles.com, and it goes, whoa, that's not a URL. URLs have HTTPS colon backslash backslash. You think that's a URL? Like, you cannot submit this form if you're not going to put it in and it stops you dead in your tracks. Sometimes it wipes the thing clean, it crashes the browser. So I told my developer partners for the resume builder, when people upload their LinkedIn to make their resume, if people put linkedin.com/whatever, just automatically please add the HTTPS to it when they start typing. It's the little stuff like that that like I think goes a really long way in terms of understanding your customer experience.
Okay, yeah, and you said a lot there. Something
Yeah,
I want
sorry.
yeah, no, it's good. This is good information. I mean, here's the thing: is that most people. This has been my experience. Most people in business, at whatever level you're at, you recognize there's so much you've learned, but that there's so much more to learn, right? And when there are people out there who are good at whatever it is they're good at, you can learn from those people. And so you've got some skills, and you sound pretty humble about it, which is great. But at the same time, you've done some things that other people haven't done. And
I,
so that's why
the
I asked.
the short version of that is empathy. I feel like I have a really strong natural empathy for people where I can really put myself in my user's shoes, and I can really deeply understand like what they're experiencing in this moment. And that actually bleeds into like my copywriting. When I'm writing copy, it's very persuasive, I feel, because it's almost like a comedian telling jokes. You have to know how the audience is going to react to the words that come out of your mouth. And that's the same thing with copywriting.
So you empathize with your audience. You understand the people who are going to be ultimately using your product or service, and you don't sleep at night. So those two things: empathy and don't sleep at night. So now I got to ask, and this is good stuff for sure. And the empathy part that checks out, Colin. That makes a lot of sense. I think everybody's got the ability to empathize. Not everybody does empathize, right? Not everybody will go through that.
I used to believe that. The recent years have had me wondering.
Oh, okay, well, I want to hear. Okay, tell me more. Let's hear what you're thinking.
Oh, I think that we live in this like odd, yeah, I don't want to go on this tangent, but like this like oddly dystopian society where like people seem to really only care about themselves. It's like a very sad, and it's not everybody. I mean, there's so many good people out there who volunteer and who give back and who, help people out. But like, as a good example is like my resume builder. It's not free. I can't afford to give it away for free, not yet, at least in my career. And so I charge people for it, but I do put on the website, if you cannot afford this, please just email me and I'll give it to you for free. And I probably give it away to a dozen people a day.
Okay.
And just that simple act, what it does is it's actually really fascinating. It's a low cost product, right? It's a digital product. So it doesn't cost me too much. I can't give it away in mass, but like, 10 or 20 people a day, it's affordable for me to do that. And those people become the biggest brand advocates in the entire world. And I get so much word of mouth from those people that I give it away to, that it more than makes up for it. I'm thinking about doing it at Sheets and Giggles. I'm like, that's the fun thing, by the way, about side projects is this is for my herniated disc, by the way. I stick this behind me in the chair so I can. But so the people that I do that for, they're just such big brand ambassadors. I'm thinking about doing it for S&G, and with the side projects that I do, this has been such a gift. And I try to tell other entrepreneurs the same thing is like founders can have a lot of guilt about like not working 100% on one thing, like day in and day out. But after like year 3, 4, 5, things start to get like your ideas get stale, and it's really hard to like keep up that like creative energy trying new things, and you get into this inertia of like, okay, well, we know what we're spending our marketing budget this month, we know what campaigns we're doing, we know what worked last year, we know what our expertise is. And with the resume business and then other things that I've done on the side, and the mentorship I do for other companies, I learn, like you just said a second ago, so much that I didn't realize I didn't know that I can then apply to my main business in Sheets and Giggles. And so that's actually been really fun. Is like taking the smaller stake stuff over here in the little passion project, experimenting with 3 or 4 things I don't have the time or budget, frankly, to experiment with over here, and then learning and bringing that into the main company. It's been really awesome.
Now, I recognize that day in and day out, what's interesting you the most and what you're learning is always changing and evolving. But maybe for our listeners or viewers, what's something that you've recently learned that you can apply to different businesses that they might be able to apply to their businesses? Maybe get a bit generic here, but what's something that's kind of neat that not everybody might know that you've been thinking about lately and have been interested in lately?
Well, one thing I just mentioned is like I think from now on I'm gonna have a line on my websites, every website I ever do, that says if you can't afford this, please email us and we will get you the product. And I think it creates a barrier where like I don't think I think that people have shame, and so I think that bad actors will not like take advantage of that too much.
Mhm.
But I think that it's just enough of a barrier to not like be taken advantage of, that reach out, contact us. But I think it's so meaningful for people because I mean, how many businesses do that? Where they're like, if you can't afford our stuff, we'll just give it to you if you ask, right? Like we know it's hard out there. That's been a big learning for me is like really, really get in deep with people and like empathize with them that deeply. And then on a tactical level, I've been able to try so many more technologies with that because we're locked into like our affiliate program, like our SEO stuff. Like we've been doing that for years over here with Sheets and Giggles. So now with the side project, it's like, oh, I get to try this technology and this technology. I can spend $1,000 here or whatever and like try this out. So I've really gotten into SEMrush recently, which actually feels very basic, that I use different software over at S&G, and I am obsessed now with the level of detail that I have on SEO that I'm going to now bring into my main business. And I've learned a lot, whereas, I have a team that does that for me at S&G, so I'm like a step removed from it. So
Mhm.
being more hands-on with SEO has been great. And then finally, on the SEO piece, what I've really come to realize is I don't really need my website to blow up on Google results or AI results. I need my brand and content to blow up. And the way you do that is I think you actually write your best advice on Reddit, which is like my main kind of go to market channel. And I
Okay.
just I put amazing advice out there on Reddit. And then that advice then gets really high ranked in Google results because Google gives Reddit this huge weight. And then that's how people find me is through those advice posts. So that's actually been a really interesting learning too.
That is interesting information. Absolutely. There's no question you've got a lot of background and it sounds like experience and knowledge with respect to business development, understanding SEO or search engine optimization, understanding business development as a whole. And that's something you can bring to a variety of different businesses. There's no question about that. every business, the way I like to explain it is every business has three primary pillars or three foundations upon which business success rests. One is business development, one is operations, one is finance and accounting. So it's like a three-legged stool, and each leg is very important. The business development part, you've got that down. The operation side, so you're into Sheets and you're into now resume builder. That's pretty diverse. And it sounds like what's maybe underpinning some of that is your understanding of technology, your understanding of not just business development, but how Google works with Reddit. And you mentioned search engine optimization with Google and AI. Now, a lot of people are starting to try to get their heads around what is AI or artificial intelligence going to mean for my business moving forward. A couple months ago, everybody Googled everything. Now, that's not, it's changing, right? I mean,
It's wild. It's wild. I never thought Google would lose its edge. I genuinely thought it was too entrenched to ever be taken down. There, in my opinion, this is maybe a tangent, they are making a huge mistake by pushing their own AI down everybody's throats every time you try to go search something. In my opinion, there's two different products. There's searching and looking for something, and then there's AI answers, which sometimes you want a more straightforward answer from like an AI.
Mhm.
I think Google really should have taken the time to develop Gemini into its own OpenAI competing app and website that had similar and hopefully better functionality than OpenAI, which was built with Bing's search functionality.
Mhm.
Instead, Google.com was like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to put our AI right into Google.com and we're going to head off OpenAI at the pass. And the problem with that is that Gemini sucks. And if Gemini sucks and they're going to give me they're going to give me bad search results on with their AI that does not, like, I looked how many teaspoons in a liter the other day, or how many teaspoons in a milliliter, right? The milliliter teaspoon. It said there were 5 teaspoons in a milliliter. And I was like, I don't think I don't think that's right. And I like looked it up further, and it was like, no, that would have been like 800 doses of the medication or whatever that I was. And I like reached out to them. I'm like, this is gonna kill somebody if you leave this up. And it's crazy because the old Google would have had the correct information right up front because they had it perfect.
Yeah.
So if they're gonna put a bad product out there, then I'm just if that becomes Google, I'm just gonna go use OpenAI. And so then this alludes to what you're talking about, which is now this people are being trained. Oh, I shouldn't even start on Google. I should
Mhm.
start on ChatGPT.
Mhm.
And I think that OpenAI must be just rubbing their hands together like this right now from how just impatiently and I think ill-advised Google is moving right now to try to beat them at their own game. So yeah, I mean AI, what does it mean for my business and everybody's businesses? Customer care is completely different. Image generation is completely different. Video generation is next, and I'm currently playing around with video generation with AI. Our marketing spend, how we manage it, our dashboard and visualization for our metrics, our financial metrics. Like how you hire, how you spend money, how you build technology. As someone who has a lot of passions and side energy, I can go on Lovable right now and I can build a website in 30 seconds for any idea I have, a functioning website, and connect it to my GoDaddy domain and publish it on the internet by just telling the AI what to build for me and uploading a few photos or having it generate the photos for me. It is, yeah, I can't even describe the seismic shift. The amount of solopreneurs that it's going to enable is enormous.
Okay, I have a question for you because you know a lot about this, and I think most business people, they have skills, they have experience, they have background, but AI is not the strong suit. It's not the significant proficiency of most business people out there, and yet everybody's recognizing that it's going to carry a lot of weight moving forward. What would your advice be to the average business person, if there is such a thing, regarding AI and how to get familiar with it and utilize it? Should we be afraid of it? What can we do to mitigate risk? What are your thoughts on that? To
I
somebody
think
who,
to answer your last question first, which I think is the most interesting. I think we should be fucking terrified of it. I think that I genuinely like. I studied economics. I understand creative destruction. I understand frictional unemployment. That is not this. This is coming for every industry at the same time, like a freight train.
Mm,
And it's in the United States, we do not have a safety net that is capable of taking care of 10 or 20% of workers that are going to get fired across every industry in the next 3 or 4 years. And I see it with the resume builder. I cannot tell you like the numbers do like I'm not a big fan of like conspiracy theorists or like, they're lying to us or whatever. It is a bloodbath in the job market right now, worse than anything I've ever seen in my career. And I was a recruiter during the 2011-12 like recovery. Like this is every company has a hiring freeze right now because they want to see what AI can do instead of new employees. There's huge volatility in the stock market as well as global trade markets for obvious reasons. And there's volatility now in the bond market because we're worried about the US potentially defaulting on its debt. And so companies right now are hoarding cash, reducing payroll commitments, going through layoffs every other day. It seems like there's another layoff in the news, all white collar work. Unemployment begins to tick up. First it's U3, then it becomes U6. And I really think that we're going to see like anywhere from 5 to 10% unemployment in the coming 2 to 3 years. And then beyond that, I don't know where it goes, but I'm super worried about people tell me that like AI is also going to unlock a lot more value. I mean, look what I've been able to do with 5 or 10 hours a week building a second, business, and now there's other opportunities and stuff that are interesting. Is it going to unlock like super productivity for people? Like maybe, but I don't think that like every industry is going to need like 30% of the people that it currently uses. Like you can't just have endless paralegal productivity or like endless web developer productivity or endless like, I think even doctors and lawyers and stuff like I think there's going to be a lot of good, but I think that if we don't move quickly to plan and game plan and mitigate the bad, I think we're in trouble. And then from like an average business person's perspective, I think you should be using AI as a chatbot on your website for 24/7 live support for your customers. Great salesman. The AI is positive and knowledgeable about your entire business. Shout out to a company called Site GPT, which is a single Indian kid named Banu who lives in India, and he's got a lot of customers now. Totally changed his life with that product. It's awesome. I use it on Sheets and Giggles, and it's just so helpful to answer questions. And then I would say you can use it for your customer care. It's a really good initial template builder that you can then build your message off, save you a lot of time and replying to people. And then I would say that it's a really good thing for marketing. It can take long form videos like this podcast. You upload it to like Opus AI or something like that. It chops it up into a bunch of different clips. Then you can upload them to YouTube automatically and Instagram and TikTok. Automatically add subtitles with Lero, which is an awesome app. So the productivity boost is tremendous, but it is going to shake up a lot of industries and a lot of businesses. And unfortunately, to me, it feels like a giant game of prisoner's dilemma where I don't think everybody actually wants to participate, but you have to because if you don't, your competition will obliterate you.
Yeah, and that checks out 100% with my experience. I mean, I've been around a little bit longer than you. I've seen things like I remember I was very young, but I remember fax machines, and then email came. People thought, oh, geez, with email, it's going to make us so much more efficient. We'll all have to work no more than 20 hours a week. You know, all right, it didn't check out like that. It didn't work out like that at all because what happens is everybody uses the new tools, but that's everybody. Your competition does too, right? And
It
so
becomes an arms race. It becomes an arms race. And with AI, what I'm actually also worried about is they call it enshittification is like the online term. I'm super worried about like, right now. Yeah, it gives me good answers, but there's gonna be a future where Google says, "Hey, you have to pay us monthly in order for our AI to consume the information on your website if you want to be recommended
Mhm.
by Gemini." Like, and then I think that Microsoft will do that too with OpenAI. Like, I think that there's going to be a future where somehow this becomes subject to capital constraints, and it's going to become another artificial barrier to entry for small players versus large players. I truly believe that.
Now, when I'm working with my clients, I'm always talking to them about a little bit about the trends and the baselines from the past, a lot about the next year, but I'm always encouraging my clients to think about the longer term. Let's position ourselves for 24 months from now, or 36 months from now, or 5 or 10 years from now. Imagine we're looking at the long term, Colin. What would you be thinking about, or what should the people in business in general be thinking about when it comes to how things are going to change and evolve? Because that's what we're talking about. Things are going to probably be here, or else it's going to be like an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. But uh, assuming that people are going to be here and doing stuff with AI, what is that future going to look like? What does Colin do to adjust and to make the world a better place? And what does he recommend to others who want to do the same?
Okay, so this is a great question. And I have a lot of thoughts about this because I'm actually considering running for politics one day, and I think about this stuff a lot and for the average person, and for myself. But so basically, we're going to be going into a world, I think, where fewer and fewer people work for small businesses and more work for big business. For example, the small business employment rate in the United States, 46% of people work for small businesses. That used to be 80% about 40 years ago, 78%. And when I was a kid growing up, it was 70%, and now it's under 50%. Small business is in a free fall. And the reality is that our government is hostile to small business, subservient to big business, but hostile to small business because small business is a threat to the big business that they are subservient to. And so as the big businesses write all the laws in our society, it becomes overly taxing and difficult for small businesses to thrive. And this is why everybody complains and moans about government interference and how government is holding back business. It's because there are a lot more small businesses than big businesses. There's millions of small businesses. So the average experience of a business owner is awful because you're dealing with sales tax, property tax, delivery tax. You got to, hire fractional CFOs and bookkeepers, and you got to, this product classification for this one is a city tax versus the county tax. The complexity is out of control, and that is purposeful, in my opinion, because they want to keep people out of markets with artificial barriers like complexity and capital. And so what's going to happen is people will work more and more for big businesses. It's easier to put your thumb down on society if most people work for large enterprises. So if most people work for 500 companies instead of 5 million companies, it is a lot easier for the government to do whatever it needs to do, whether that's a rollout of some type of initiative, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing or whatever. It's just easier. And the government's people, and people like easier things. And so they move more and more and more to this society where there's 500 businesses, or really 7 businesses, that seem to control a huge amount of our society. And so what is, I think, going to happen and how to defend yourself from it is you need to create your own income streams and your own revenue streams, because you're not going to be able to depend on a steady paycheck from 10 or 100 businesses that they're going to continue to capture industry, and then they're going to continually downsize their human capital labor force with AI and robotics as the years go on. So you'll have fewer businesses with fewer people, and the jobs will become more and more competitive as time goes on. The pay will go down because the supply of jobs will go down while the demand for them goes up. And so like the cost of labor will go down. And I think that if you're looking for employment long term, it's going to be more and more of a battle. And so I highly recommend that people right now start their own companies, as many as they can, and income streams that they can do. And I think that right now is a golden era of solopreneurship where AI is plentiful and you have access to a lot of cheap resources. It won't be like that forever. So I would move quickly to start your own income streams and try to be that change you want to see, where you're a small business owner and you're not beholden to somebody else.
Right. Okay.
Sorry, big rant. But
Good.
yeah.
Good stuff. This is good stuff because it's on people's minds, right? And so I appreciate your insights on that. Now I'm going to let that resonate with people, but let me ask you about the other function of business that we haven't yet discussed, and that's my area of expertise: finance and accounting. So you're a business person, you've got various interests, but tell me your experience with the finance and accounting component of your businesses.
It's a pain, right? I mean, it's annoying and frustrating that, and this is why you're a great partner in business, and my fractional CFO I love to death, because this stuff is so confusing and convoluted. And a lot of founders are not the most, like financially gifted people. Like ADHD people are not good with money. And like I don't want to think about bookkeeping. I want to think about product market fit, creative marketing ideas, strategic go-to-market plans, customer experience. That's what I want to spend my time on, right? And so, like, I've got to hire a bookkeeper for the resume business. Why? Well, because I have to remit my taxes, and like, am I subject to this tax or that tax, or like, am I collecting the payroll tax correctly? Am I offering the family leave that I need to offer? Am I doing a 401k for my people? Like, am I, like, there's so many different pieces of it that it's just overwhelming for the average business owner to take care of by themselves. And I love fractional CFOs for that exact problem. It's just such an awesome industry.
So even if you don't sleep at night, you still don't want to spend time on bookkeeping and that kind of stuff.
It's just you got to lean into where your talents are, and my that is not my talent. Nope.
100%. You said so. You've got a fractional CFO, somebody who's doing your fractional CFO work. Is that like your bookkeeper who's giving you some advisory services, or is it a fractional CFO who?
It's both. I have somebody who's a fractional CFO who has people on his team who then do the bookkeeping. So
Okay.
he's the CFO advisor, strategic piece, and we go over the books together and create our financial models together. And then his team is our bookkeeping accounting team, and they're awesome. They're solid ratio in Colorado. Not to list a competitor of yours, but Matt and his team out there, they're actually CFO and advisors for a lot of consumer brands in Colorado specifically. They have a consumer brand expertise, and I love those guys.
Okay, so no, this is good. Tell me the top three benefits of working with Matt and his team.
Well, so
And
yeah. So first off, like I was a 27-year-old first time founder when I started this business, right? And I did there's known unknowns and there's unknown unknowns. And bookkeeping and tax remittance, sales tax, cash accounting versus accrual accounting. Like, yeah, I went to business school. I took a financial accounting class. I got a B plus in it. One of the few B's I got. It really did not interest me. And I made some mistakes early on with S&G. I think we were doing cash accounting for like 2 or 3 years. And Matt got in there and he was like, what are you doing? He's like looked at me and sounds like, I'm sorry. I've never done this before. And
yeah,
so it's just so nice to have people who are willing to devote their time and their lives to like really taking care of other people's businesses, almost like a caretaker. And so regulatory compliance, sales tax remittance and calculation, obviously filing our annual taxes with our tax team. Sending me my month end close. They do a great report every month of like, here's top line, here's EBITDA, here's everything in between, and here are the places that we see for improvement versus month over month and quarter over quarter and year over year. It's so helpful, and so it's strategic.
do they get into the discussions regarding planning and budgeting and forecasting, trying to establish what your goals are for the next several years and charting the course to hit those goals, what the milestones are, and how to get there?
Yes, and with Sheets and Giggles, it was actually very challenging. Our first three Q1s, so 2019, 2020, 2021, we went 200,000, 750,000, 2.1 million. So, so those were our first three Q1s. You tell me how to forecast 200 SKUs to properly hit your inventory needs. And customers are ruthless, man. Customers are like, you are out of King Orchid. How could you? Like, you only have 8 other colors for me to choose from. And you don't have my favorite color right now. And they're just 1 star. And it's like, bro, like, it is so hard. Like, I've got 7 sizes, I've got 14 colorways, I've got 10 different product lines. Like, and you're growing 3 or 4x year over year, and you have to forecast this through holiday to have the right inventory for holiday, but to not have too much left over for January when you're sitting on cash, but to not have not enough left to where you can't get through January into February when your next shipment hits.
That's
And
right.
then you throw COVID on top of that, and you throw the worst supply chain crisis in a century on top of that. And I'm getting calls from people, from my freight forwarders, being like, hey, man, we couldn't get into the port of Savannah, so we dropped off your shit in the Bahamas. So good luck. Go pick up your containers.
Well, you know what, Colin?
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't
I
kill
can't,
you. It didn't kill you, so it made you stronger. That's what I'm going to say.
brother. It was a tough time, and it's funny. People are like goldfish. They're like, "Why are prices up?" And it's like they're I'm like screaming from the rooftops, like it was a crisis, like it was supply chain like explosion. Like but people don't know where the toothpaste on the shelf comes from. You know what I mean? They show up, it's magic, it's there, and
And Matt and his team helped you through it, right? So that
oh my God. I can't recommend getting a fractional CFO and bookkeeping team enough to the average business owner. Like focus on your business. It's a few $1,000s a month, maybe, depending on how much services you're getting, 2,000 to $7,000 a month. And it is so, so, so worth it. And I don't know what you charge, but depending on, I've seen I wouldn't trust anything lower than a few thousand a month, but when you get into the 10+ thousand dollar a month range, maybe you just have a full time person. You know what I mean? But like, it's broadly, it's worth it for sure.
well, let's give a shout out to Matt and his team. What's his business's name?
Solidratio.com.
Okay, right on. Good job, Matt. Okay, now we've reached the point in the show where you can ask me, a fractional CFO, any question you have at all. Feel free to cook one up, or if you've got one handy, let me have it.
What's a fun story about something that you noticed in a customer's book and a client's books that they were totally unaware of that you pointed out to them and it like fundamentally changed the way they thought about their business? Can you think of a good example?
Yeah, I can think of one. We've been working with a client over the past few years. Same thing, similar to your story. They're growing quickly. And so they got to a point. I'll keep it relatively short, but it's still a fun story. What happened is they went from a $1 million company to a $10 million company, and they were forecasting more than doubling that in the next year. But the shareholders were getting nervous because they were looking at the cash flow, and they were looking at balance sheet. There was debt, and there wasn't a lot of cash, and the forecast was good, but a lot of the shareholders got to the point where there was almost a mutiny with the CEO. And so the CEO in discussions with me was asking me what my opinion was. And what I said to him was that there's different ways to look at a business. And every business, even large businesses, can get to the point where they're building their infrastructure. They're hiring the new sales, these new operations people, admin people, whatever. They are purchasing the equipment. They're building the organization to be a bigger, better organization, right? And while they're doing that, you can have a cash pinch. You can be profitable, or you can even have months where you're not profitable. But you've got to build that infrastructure. So there's something referred to it as a J curve. You might be familiar with that concept, but the idea is in the early stages of the business, the finances don't look that good, but you're building up and preparing for the future. And if you forecast out and build into the equation what things are going to be like next year and the year after, and go back to the shareholders and show them that although we're not profitable now, we're not going to be profitable next month. Our cash flow is bad and we're borrowing money, and some of that's the shareholder money. But here are the projections. This is what it's going to look like in month 11, month 15, month 36. And here's what the approximate value of the company is going to be. So right now you're afraid, and I
Right.
get that you put money into a business and there's no immediate profit. But understand that this is a long-term plan. And by virtue of being able to put together the projections and show them on a spreadsheet, and show them not just what the projections look like, but show them what the value of the business is going to be like, and show them what the business is going to look like in terms of what are the staff, what kind of staff we're going to have in place, what kind of clients are we going to have in place, what is this going to mean in terms of revenue, in terms of cost of goods sold, in terms of overhead expenses, and what will we be able to do, and how will we be able to compete? So you need to take it out of just the area of being a spreadsheet, but let's build the story, the holistic story regarding what our business is doing now and why it's doing it and where it's going with that. Then the shareholders can relax a little bit and understand that there is a plan, and there's a financial component that's aligned with the operational component. It's aligned with the business development component. There's three strong legs of this stool, and we're building them up. And the success of the business is going to be rested upon that. And all three functions are working together. That's where the finance function can be particularly helpful with respect to
Yep.
completing that story and putting that vision together. Translate the strategy into numbers, or translate the vision into numbers, will help to fill out that picture and help everybody calm down a little bit and focus on what's most important.
I love that.
Yeah, and the company comes out of the J curve and everybody's a lot better off. Now that doesn't mean it's now easy, because business isn't easy, but if
No.
you enjoy it, you're having fun, then it's not really work, is it?
Right. And I think that founders are really, every founder has their rose-colored glasses on, right? You wouldn't do this if you weren't delusionally optimistic in some way, shape, or form. But the CFO is really good at like saying like, hey, like you're telling a story, you've got to have numbers to put behind that story. And so like that's actually something I learned early on and I've been very successful with is like when I have my decks and I tell my stories and I give my updates, I have the numbers front to back of every single piece of the equation. And those often come straight from my fractional CFO group. And I like you can't do it on all on your own. Like it's impossible. And so a CFO to me is like almost like a spiritual co-founder. Even if they're not there from the beginning, because they have, I think, bigger impact on the business than almost anyone else.
As a fractional CFO, I've been an advisor, I've been a coach, I've been a worker. My team and I will actually take things away and we'll execute upon part of the strategy. I've been a marriage counselor, you name it, and I've been a CEO too. I own my business, so I'm a fractional CFO, but sometimes
You
it's
get
just
it?
CEO on CEO discussion. Hey, if you and I both owned this business, this is what I would suggest we do as partners. So I've had all of those conversations and they're fantastic. I've benefited and my clients have benefited. So I think you're right. There's a role that a fractional professional can play for a company that, this wasn't very common a decade ago. The idea of a fractional CFO wasn't really a thing. There was IT people who were fractional. There were lawyers are typically fractional. They'll work with a company without being full-time employed by a company. But the thinking was hire a junior accountant and
Right.
they'll look after things until you're big enough for a CFO. The
Right.
challenge with that is a junior accountant isn't going to give you the same results that a fractional CFO will. Somebody who's got
No.
the experience, the expertise.
Also, early on in a business, and in fact, I would say even later on, like there are very few businesses that need 40 hours a week
That's right.
of financial work. Like, I think that, like, certainly there's a size you can get to where you need 40 hours a week. But if you have a well-run business with like a reasonably set up operation, especially nowadays with the way that you can use software, I think that most companies need like 5 to 20 hours a week of financial work, and it doesn't really make sense to give because like what is a junior accountant going to do for the other 10 or 20 hours a week as I'm building the business, and it's kind of just wasted capital.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's yeah, so it's also a lot more cost effective for a business.
Yeah, it is. My team and I, with the software that's available today, can do in just a few hours what it used to take one person 3 weeks to do.
And soon with AI, you'll be able to upload your client's docs right to the AI and say, give me 10 insights that I can, summarize and send to my client. That's going to be a challenge for you and for other people in your industry is like, how do you not get that? That's actually a challenge for most business owners is how do you not get complacent and lazy with AI? Because if I got to write a blog post every week, or if I got to create new content for a digital marketing campaign, yeah, I can spend 40, 50 hours a week doing those things. Or I could send it to AI, take what it gives me, and then hopefully build off of it. But there's a temptation there to just take what it gives you and run with it. And
Yeah.
I think that that's also something that people are going to have to look out for is like, how do you not become complacent in the age of AI?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We see that a lot. We use AI, of course, and it does some of the lower value add work for us. If it gets more into the called strategic side of things, like it'll give some insight sometimes, and you have to. They're not all perfect, and sometimes they'll give you some bad advice, like take way too much medicine. But at the same time, it can help with some of that stuff that used to be more time consuming, sort of a quick overview analysis. But getting into that back and forth discussion, talking strategy, going back and forth, aligning with the other stakeholders on the team and being able to help them interpret the numbers in real time and to be able to contribute from not just a financial point of view but an all around business point of view, like understanding all factors of the business, how they impact the finances, what the different scenarios might be. AI can do that at this point, or sorry, AI cannot do that at this point. One day maybe it can. I don't know. At that point, maybe it's a robot who goes to work and does what I do. But I think that's a couple months away anyway. So we'll see.
And that the rapidity that that's the other thing is like, I'm a millennial entrepreneur. I know a lot of successful Gen X entrepreneurs and boomer entrepreneurs and
Yeah.
millennial. The Gen Z entrepreneurs are crazy. They like the way that they move. 21-year-olds, 25-year-olds. I feel like I'm ancient at 35. I always thought I was with it. I always thought I knew all the new tech. I was on every online trend. I understood the online conversation. Now these younger entrepreneurs will tell me like, oh, like, do you control your own Discord, or like, oh, like, have you done a WAP, or like, and I'm like, what? I'm like, what do you like? I have
Yeah.
no idea what they're even talking about. Like, and it's really impressive. I don't envy them, because I think that this is the next wave of competition, and I guess this is just the way society kind of improves and builds upon itself. Like the next wave of competition is going to be like ruthless, like just so difficult to compete in the world that we're building. I think it's going to create a lot of great companies, but I also think it's going to create a lot of challenging outcomes for people that maybe 10 or 20 years ago would have been a little easier to compete.
Yeah. Well, my strategy is if you can't beat them, hire them.
Higher,
So I'm working with a couple young fellas right now,
very cool.
and definitely trying to work with AI too. So, Colin, we're at the end of the show for the most part. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our viewers or listeners? Word of advice or thoughts about your business? Anything you'd like to promote? Now's the time. Please don't hesitate. But anything at all, it's up to you.
Obviously, if you need new bed sheets, new mattress, new pillows, go to sheetsgiggles.com. We're doing our 4th of July sale right now. We'll be doing Labor Day sales later in the year. If you've never tried a lyocell, it is smoother than cotton. It's more breathable. It's amazing for hot sleepers, and I just can't recommend it enough for someone who maybe you're wondering if you're sleeping on the best stuff possible or not. And it will pay dividends. Your sleep, ironically, I say as someone who with the neck, I know this deeply. Good sleep will change your life. And so sheetsgiggles.com, amazon.com/sheets. And then if you are looking for a new job, or you're thinking about maybe getting a career change, go to sheetsresume.com. We've got a lot of free tools there for you. That's mostly just me. I'm kind of a one-man shop. I do have a partner that works on it with me. But it is really awesome for resume building, cover letter writing. The cover letter writing is fascinating. That's free for everybody. I saw a recent stat the other day. The average job hunter applies for 200 jobs over 5 months on average before they get an offer.
Hmm.
And if you're doing 200 applications and you're writing over 5 months, and you're writing about half an hour's worth of time for a cover letter, right? Let's say half an hour. If you take that over 200 times, it's 100 hours of your life. That's 4 days of your life that you're spending over one job search typing up cover letters. And so that's a great use of AI. It just because I'll tell you a secret, ain't nobody reading those cover letters. Cover letters are useless, man. They will never ever save a bad candidate. It is a checkbox amongst all checkboxes. And so don't waste your time. Use our free cover letter writer at sheetsresume.com.
Right on. Well, thanks, Colin, for your insights today, and thanks for joining us as a guest. To our listeners and viewers out there, if there's anything interesting about this podcast that you found would be worthwhile sharing, please share it with others in your network. We'd like to get the word out there regarding this podcast and Colin's businesses. I'd like people to be aware of what he's doing out there, because it's interesting stuff. And I really enjoyed our conversation today, Colin. So thank you for your time.
Same, Ryan. Thanks for having me. This was a really, really fun conversation.
Right on. Well, that's it for our podcast today. Goodbye, everybody.